All right, so quick breakdown. We are doing a One Piece Set 13 pre-release pick or drop, basically list. It's not even really a tier list. I guess it's a tier list. But anyways, just to show off first, I have probably won over, well, I've won at least 10 pre-releases in my time playing the One Piece card game. So hopefully that gives enough credit as far as what I have to say for this. Let's get to it. Here's the tier list. First things first, I'll explain. Must pick means the cards you will always have in your deck. Pick means if you have an excess amount, then these are some of the cards that you can probably filter out of your deck. But the must picks always must stay in. The ones that are picks, you can decide to, take out if there's too many. Now, on the flip side, if you don't have enough picks from both 1 and 2, you're going to want to substitute the cards here that are going to go on this tier list, meaning that these are not good cards, they are suboptimal, but sometimes you're going to have 35 picks and must picks. The last 5 are going to be from this tier here, as opposed to the drop tier. The drop tier, self-explanatory, you want to drop these cards from ever going into your deck. Now, this is assuming that you're playing the Rainbow Luffy leader, which is now, as of recently, a pre-designated leader for pretty much all pre-releases at this point. So if you are doing a format with different leaders, then this list doesn't apply. But this is going off of if you're playing the Rainbow leader. All right, let's go over some simple rules that I do for drafts. So, rule number 1, you want to always draft vanilla cards uh, that are 3 cost and up, because they're always going to be good value for what they provide in this type of format. I'll go ahead and explain once I get into some of the vanilla cards that we have. You almost always want to draft 2K counter cards. You pretty much always want to draft 2Ks, but once you have 12 to 14 of them, you're going to want to stop putting them in your deck. You only want, I would say this is the sweet spot as far as, being able to optimize your deck. Anymore, it's going to get clunky because the 2K costs usually don't have good effects to go with the card. There are exceptions. This is a really good one, for example, which is the first card that we'll go through, but you always want to draft blockers if they're 4 costs or less. There are some exceptions where now they're releasing like 6 cost, 7 cost blockers that are like only 4,000 power and a suboptimal effect. You do not want to play those. They will most likely be in the substitute area. Rule number 2, 4 to 7 cost characters are always optimal for curve. The reason why is because this is your turn 2, turn 3 plays, and subjectively, they're probably the most important for this type of format because those characters you play will pretty much determine the flow of the game. There are later cost characters which may turn the tides of the game, but establishing it like this, and then also having like 2 4 costs, you could play 2 cards at once in a late turn. But yeah, that's what I think. It ties into rule number 3. After you construct your deck, you always want to read your curve, lay out all of the cards with the same costs, the high costs, the low costs. If you have high costs, you want to go more control. If you have low costs, you're definitely going more aggro. Odds and evens, if you have more odd cards, you obviously want to go first based on the curve. If you have more even cards, that'll go second. For those of you that know, some of the Roger cards, which are purple, they have a Dawn requirement where you have to like attach one to your leader. So if it is like an odd Roger card and it says you have to have a Dawn attach, you kind of want to consider it an even. And I'll go back to that once we get to those purple Roger cards. Okay, so starting off, Inazuma will be a 4 cost 5,000, which is pretty decent stats. 2,000 counter already makes it a really good card. If it didn't have this effect, which is to give your leader a Rested Dawn, it would already be a must pick. So yeah, the fact that you also get to swing 6,000 the turn you play it, that's pretty good, and that's like worst case scenario. Whoop Slap is a 1 cost card where on play, so you only play it and the effect happens once, you get 2 Rested Dawn. So it's basically plus 2,000 for 1 cost, and you I don't think this is good because after that it just becomes a dead character. This will be a must pick card simply because 2,000 counter, and for 1 cost you have an effect where you give one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 power. It's basically a power Kleptotama if you really think about it. Alright, this is going to be a drop. It seems like almost each color has one of these things where 2 costs, if a type would be KO'd, you could trash this character. They're all going to be drops from here on out. You're not really going to want to consistently go with deck themes in pre-release because it'll ruin the flow of you trying to draft like those 4 to 7 costs that are going to win you the game. The Don is going to be a substitute. It's honestly really, really bad. You have to have another Mountain Bandit character, but double attack is really good. So if you are running out of cards, you want to consider running this if you have a lot of Mountain Bandit cards in your deck. Now, for the first vanilla card here, you could see 6 costs, 8,000. There's a recurring theme where starting at 3 costs, it's 5,000, 4 for 6,000. So each cost is always going to be plus 2,000 if it's a 1,000 counter. There will be vanilla cards which will come up that are plus 2,000 counter, and if it was a 6 cost, it would be 7,000 attack. Again, following the rules, all vanillas are going to be picked. This is an example right here. So if it were a 5 cost, 1,000 counter, it would normally be 7,000 power. However, 2,000 counter, 6,000, still really good stats, very playable if you need to have board presence. All right, for following deck archetypes, once again, almost all the searchers are going to be dropped. You don't want to risk playing a 1-drop cost for a search because again, if you whiff, it affects the flow of consistency. It already brings you minus. There will be an exception, which is the GARP card right here. We'll explain that when we get there. Higuma is going to be a substitute. The reason is he's not a counter, so he's already really bad in that regard. It's only a 1 cost with the useless effect, almost useless effect. However, it is a 3,000 power, so following the rules of vanillas, this is going to be decent as far as if you're trying to push out an aggro game. If you have a lot of low costs in your deck, substitute it in if you need to. Rouge is going to be a pick just because it's a 2k counter. It doesn't have much utility besides that. However, in a pinch, if you are in the late game, your Rainbow Luffy leader does count as Portgas the Ace, so it will give you plus 3,000 power, making it an AK leader. If you trigger it in the late game, it'll stop big attacks, maybe even win you the game on that defining turn. All right, now following how this looks with the 2,000, 1,000 1 cost effect, it's a must pick. To be able to give your leader, or even just your leader 2,000 power and have this be a threat on the board. If your character doesn't have small characters, they would sometimes have to commit swinging 5, 6, 7,000 into a 0 cost. And that's a very good trade for you. Now, again, normally I wouldn't condone searchers in your pre-release picks, but this is just way too consistent because your leader qualifies the effect to search, and you're looking for any 3 or more costs, as opposed to an archetype. That's just generically very good. Okay, so something I want to bring up is effects that prevent removal are really good in a constructed format because removal is very prevalent. In this format, I believe there are only 4 or 5 removal cards in total, and the card pool is over 100 cards. So your chances of seeing removal aren't very likely at all in this format. It's possible, but very unlikely. I think with the stats and costs, you would want to put it as a substitute. Okay, 2K counter. Must pick. There are a lot of events in this format where you can get a plus 3,000 counter as well as the side effects. Basically, it's guard point, power crypt if you played in the first set, OP01 guard point. Being able to rest 5 Dawn in total to KO a 6,000 or just -3 and then KO a weenie is amazing. So if you see this card, you're going to put it as a must pick in your deck. We'll go ahead and put this card as a substitute because this provides utility for control as far as just removing your opponent's high cost or high power characters, or using this to just stop basically one attack. Okay, we'll put this as a substitute as well because overall this is just a... you know what? Let's put this as a pick. This is removal as well, but the commitment for just 1 Dawn is a lot less than the commitment for 3 Dawn with the previous card. Being able to -2k one of your opponent's characters and then make your leader 6,000 is going to be really good for controlling the board, not only like in the mid-late game, but also early if you just want to get rid of something really early. We're going to not be playing any of the stage cards. None of the stage cards are worth their effects for this format. Alright, so for Uda, a lot of the green cards you'll be restanding your Dawn, so you're basically cheating out on on the turns you can play these. You're cheating these out for a cheaper cost. So you're basically playing a 2 cost 5,000 attacker, and also making your leader 7,000 at a worst case scenario because you won't be able to, play any cards that are... Well, you wouldn't be able to play any bigger cost cards, but you would be able to play smaller ones, I guess. It's a must pick. So Gordon, we're going to put him as a pick just because he has the 2k utility. We're not really going to substitute any of these 2ks. All right. Kobe is a must pick. You'll be able to restand one of your Dawn, so he's a 4 cost 6,000 blocker. Sunnykun's a substitute just because effectively he is a 1 cost 4,000 character, but at the cost of, having to rest the Dawn. Sanji will be a must pick. Really good stats for cost. You're cheating him out as a 3 cost, and you do get an extra Dawn if you happen to have any of those counter events. That'll give you plus 3,000 for protection. Shanks is a regular pick. The only reason I say regular is because this is the best, well, maybe not the best. This is a really good 10 cost. And the fact that you can reset all your Dons, so you're swinging really, really big, and then you have a bigger board for next turn with this Shanks, just to pretty much close out the game. If you play this character based on the game state and you survive next turn, you pretty much win the game. All right, Jinbei, vanilla, Chopper. He's a cheat, 3 cost for 6,000 with the counter. This is a weird one because he doesn't have a counter. He doesn't have a cost. I mean, he has a high cost relative to attack power. You return one of your characters to play out another character. So you effectively can play a character or attack with the character that is already on the board, and worst case scenario, bring it back to hand and restand it, on the board again, or play something else that may be even better. I guess that's going to put it in must pick, yeah. All right. Nico Robin is going to be a must pick. Simply put, she's going to be able to stun one of your opponent's characters at the cost 8 or less. And it says it cannot be rested, meaning they cannot attack, because in order to attack, they have to rest their character. This disables that. Frankie will be a substitute. I don't really like it as a fact that it doesn't have a counter. You know what? We'll put it as a pick. It still meets the requirements of stats for cost, but it doesn't have the counter. And on paper, this effect is really good. But if your opponent is, a good player, they'll be able to play around it, swing low, with at other things, and then just like one big swing at this thing towards the end of the turn. Put Brook as a substitute because it's effectively not worth paying 4,000 for 3. You will get one active Dawn, so it's basically a 2 for 4. Not good. I mean, not great, but it's okay. Alright, now this is another one of those cheat cards. You're getting a Dawn set as active, or this Beppo can restand himself. So if you swing with him, he just goes back up, can't be targeted. I'll say that's a must pick in my book. That's another must pick. So Zoro, if you another cheat card. For on play, you're basically doing 2 cost for 5,000. And then, this character also does the Beppo thing where it just restands and it can't be targeted for attack. I think we're going to drop Elephant Gun. It's not with its effects. It can be good if you're looking to rest one of your opponent's characters. In a control state, actually, you may want to go for it. So I'll put it as substitute because it does have utility. It's not great utility, but if you do have higher costs in your deck, you may want to play this out just for the control. This is also going to go as a substitute. If you don't have enough cards to meet this, if you don't have enough cards to be in the picks, this will be a decent card to use just to stop attacks. The more I think about it, the more this is actually pretty decent, but it doesn't feel really good in the late game. I would say that it stays as a substitute. This is basically Ghetto Electric Luna. You're paying 3 Dawn to stun 2 characters that are 7 or less, or you can use it as a counter card too. That's a great pick. Izo, I'll put it as a regular pick because, again, 6 cost for 6,000 power is not great. It does have a 1 counter, but you're really going to want to play this on the board if you have this card. Being able to draw 2 is great for consistency and stuff, but if you're going for a curve game, your opponent could just play a 5 cost for 7,000 and then you play this next, and that kind of puts you at a disadvantage temporarily for the board state. Newgate's a must pick. The fact that you're able to draw 1 card after cycling one, and then you can do 2 Rested Dawn, that's just unspeakably good. Otama's another must pick. Being able to draw 2 and discard 1 or counter. I think Curiel We'll put him as a pick. Um, no, we'll put him as a substitute. If it had a counter, this would be decent enough for its effects, but it's really kind of iffy without counter, because if you draw it or take it from life late game, it becomes useless. Haruta, on the flip side, we'll go ahead and put it as a pick because he becomes a necessary target if you play your hand right. You know, that being that you have fewer, 4 or fewer. Vista, great stats for cost, double attack. So for 8,000, you're making your opponent have to counter out or take 2 life. The effect is decent, but again, we're not looking at too much removal in this format. No, this is that removal card. Yeah, no. All right, let's put Flamenco, the vanilla, at the very predicted must pick. We'll also put Blenheim at must pick. Sandersonia is a drop. There's only one Boa Hancock in this format. It's going to be this Boa Hancock. So consistently speaking, you're not going to be able to get it out, really. You may be able to get it out, but at that point, you just have some 3,000 character on board. It's not worth playing it. Boa's a must pick. 3 cost, 5,000. Even though no counter, you're still drawing 2 if she gets KO'd. So this is one of those cases where it's not a 4 cost or less blocker. It doesn't have 5,000 or more power, and its effect doesn't really meet consistently for this format. So even though it's a blocker, we'll substitute it. If you're lacking blockers and you need more picks, then go ahead and put her in. Teach is a substitute because you want to meet his effect to banish, but discarding a Whitebeard Pirates card is once again meeting an archetype, which you're not trying to do for this format. All right, that's must pick. Yamato lets you draw 2. You also get a rest. You also get a rested Dawn. Yeah, so Rakuyo. That will be a substitute because, again, this is only if you need more cards. And otherwise, this is just not worth it. Little Oars Jr. is a must pick. You're going to be able to draw every turn he stays on the board. So, yeah, you honestly are just going to counter out any attacks that go towards him, unless it's too big, simply just because you're going to draw 2 next turn if he survives. All right, this Ace event will be a must pick because you can always use it as a +3 counter, or you can go ahead and rest 2 Dawn and just go through blockers if you have 1 or less life. So this is like super late game type situation. This is going to be a regular pick. The first effect, you're not really going to see too much. It's the second effect, which is just the +3k. That's good. This card is a substitute card. If it said 4 cost, return an opponent's 6 or less cost to hand, that would be decent, but you have to return one of your own characters. It's only for like a really control-y type of game that you're playing. All right. So this is anti-removal for this color for the Roger Pirates. We're not gonna play that. Our first ramp card, you have to have a given Dawn, so it's effectively 4 costs to ramp. And you can also KO an opponent's 1 or less cost characters. Not bad. There are better ramp cards though. We'll put it as a substitute, just in case you know, you need to play something like that. This is already a better card here because for 6 costs, you have to have a given Dawn, and then you play 5. You get to ramp. It is an active Dawn. And whenever he swings, you also get to, you know, bounce a weenie blocker, which can be useful in some situations. I would say he is a pick. Odin is 6 cost, 6,000 blocker for ramp. That's a must pick. Blocker exceeds, you know, any type of returning low cost. Roger's going to be a must pick as well. You're effectively going to make your leader plus 2,000, plus 4,000 for your opponent's character's swings. So it's by default like a 9,000 character leader. Dawn -3 at 10 Dawn is amazing. You're only going to be at 9 Dawn for your next turn, so you know it's worth it for what it does. If you play this out on your late game curve, I would be very sad as your opponent. We're not running searchers. We'll put it as a substitute because, you know, if you're going to go ramp heavy, which is unlikely, but if you just happen to have a ton of Roger cards, like, sure, run it. I'll put it in a drop for now. Prerelease is a 8 cost 9,000 rush. You're also going to be doing a bunch of stuff that benefits you, so I don't need to explain it. 8 cost 9,000 rush. Okay, so this is one of the few where you don't have to have Dawn attached already. You're drawing 1 card and you're ramping. We're going to go ahead and put him at must pick. Douglas Bullet is also a must pick. You know what? I think Shanks needs to be a substitute. If you have a lot of these Roger cards, I think you may just actually run him in. Alright. If you have 8 or more Dawn cards, he's basically a 3 cost 6,000. You are also just ramping right away, so it's insane. We're not running stage cards. This effect is negligible. It's not worth its stats for cost. Vanilla. That's a must pick. Nekomamushi. Alright. So it's a pick because it's a 2,000 counter. Its effect is not the most important, but it's still a pick because of the 2,000 counter. This is a ramp card or a 2,000 counter. That is a must pick. Vanilla card, must pick. We'll put Hera as a substitute. If it were 6,000 power, then you're definitely running it. But its effect isn't great. Yeah, it just meets the 5,000 requirement to swing at your opponent's leader. So if you need to play it, you can play it. Okay, so this is a ramp card, or it's also plus 3,000. We'll go ahead and put it as a regular pick, because it's not the best effect, but it's not the worst effect. So Divine Departure will get must pick status. Unlike the other events, this is a 0 cost, so you're effectively discarding 2 cards from your hand to make plus 3,000. Some situations that's going to be really good, especially if you're playing a lot of non-counters, which can be possible. Alright, we'll put this as a regular pick. The offensive effect or your turn effect is okay. The counter effect always good. We're not running any stages. All right, there's a lot of these five elders and celestial dragons we're not gonna run. There are maybe only like 3 or 4 that we will pick, but simply because they're like blockers, or yeah, I think simply just because of blockers. We'll get to those. You don't want to really run these because 6 cost for 5,000 isn't really good stats, and you're really possibly you may not even see 7 or more cards in your trash until like late game, and at that point it's too late to be playing cards like this. So this guy is a drop. Koala. So we'll put Koala as a pick because you're going to be able to return a card from your trash to the deck and give plus 1,000 to anything, making multiple 6k swings a viable thing with this Koala and your leader. The 5 Elders will be a substitute because it is an endgame boss for 10,000, 10 cost 12,000. If you don't have any other 10 cost 12,000s, you could consider running this. You're never going to be using the effects in this format though, so you're going to want to just consider, you know, if you happen to go all 5 Elders really hard, it's very possible you could build that way, but it's very, I don't see it working out as well for sure. All right. We'll put Saturn as a substitute. Again, if you need something on the 4 or 5 curve, this is something that you'll put in your deck. All right. We'll put this as a pick. Strictly because of the 2k counter. You're going to pretty much want to run 2ks up until, 14 of them maximum. Jarmak will be a substitute. In older formats, it was a lot more aggro, so something like 2 cost for 4,000 would have been good. But the format has gotten a lot more mid-range slash control-y. We're not adding any searchers. St. Charles is going to be a must pick. 2k, 2 cost blocker, self-explanatory. Got a vanilla here and Terry, Jilteo. We'll put Valkyrie or Warcurie as a pick, just because on his KO you do replenish off of his attacks and stuff. So if you do see this card, you may want to run it too. He does also eventually gain blocker, but again, only 7 more in the trash, so that would be like a late game type of deal. Hack is a must pick. Mars is going to be our first form of a removal card. He also goes game blocker later in the game, which is good. We'll go ahead and put him as a pick, just because removing a opponent's character with 5 or less is pretty good. All right, we got a 2k counter in Mosgard. Pick. Morgan's is going to be a must pick. 3 cost blocker. York is going to be a drop. We're not looking for too much inconsistency as far as Celestial Dragons go, and it's only an on-play buff 1 turn. Roseword is going to be a drop. Not worth the effect of KOing low costs. You have to discard a card as well. We're not running any searchers. Another 3k counter for 1 cost event. If you do happen to run any of the Celestial Dragons, you do get this in the form of removal. We'll go ahead and place it as a pick. This card is going to be a must pick. Just because your leader counts as Emu too. Under the assumption that we are running the Rainbow Luffy, you're never going to see this effect as far as using it on your turn. It's normally in counter to this stage, which I don't see up here actually. But anyways, yeah, we're not running any stages, so it would go here as a drop as well. All right. We've got Atlas. Must pick. Edison. He'll be a regular pick. Gyo. Must pick. Hiyori. I think, in my opinion, Hiyori is probably the best card in this entire format because you're essentially stopping one attack in the form of a blocker, and you're also gaining a life. Yeah, gaining a life. That's really amazing for a blocker as far as an effect goes. I'm going to move it to the very top here. You must pick that card if you have it. On the flip side, her older brother, that's a drop. It's not worth playing 3 costs to look at your life. It doesn't even have power. Alrighty. We'll put Connie as a drop. There's simply just not enough cards with triggers for this to be viable. Shaka, must pick, vanilla. Bonnie is a 9-cost rush. 10,000 rush. Your opponent adds the top of your life to their hand, so they're taking 2 life if you're swinging this at their leader and they're not responding to that swing. Not great because of removal stats, but it is a 6,000 power for 5 costs, which is considerably better than the 5,000 power 4 costs. Stussy is another high cost blocker where you're not really going to see too much consistency with her on play. She's going to be a substitute. You should only play her if you need to play more blockers. It's not really good to play, a high cost blocker like that though for the sake of blocking. Pythagoras, must pick. Vegapunk is probably the second best blocker in this game, or in this format, besides the Hiyori. You're gonna get blocker pretty much for 1 cost, as long as you play around giving yourself 2 down, which works perfectly fine. Even if not, this guy's just gonna be sitting on the board anyways. Nobody's removing a low cost guy. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. So we're not running any searchers. We'll go ahead and put Lilith and drop. S-Snake. She's going to be a must pick. She's got a really good control ability, in the sense that you're giving your opponent's character minus 2k, easier way to clear it. This card will put as a substitute. If you need some defensive play, you're more high cost late game type deal, this is going to be worth playing just to protect yourself. We're not running any searchers. This is another good removal card. I would say, honestly, it would be a must pick. Luffy Secret Rare. Must pick. double attack. You're also getting 4 Dawn back, which is basically cheating out a 2 cost for 7,000 double attack. Alright, this guy also gets rush, so 6 cost 7,000 rush is pretty good. You're also giving Rested Dawn and bouncing a card. To play a lower cost card, I guess, but that's pretty nifty. Alright, Sabo, must pick 6k, 6 costs, 7k blocker. You get Arrested Dawn as well. Probably the weakest of the 3. Luffy's absolutely by far the most cracked secret rare that they have for sure. But yeah, so these are older set cards that are reprinted in the form of SPs. Oh, not that one. Ben Beckman is actually the one, but for some reason Shanks is that picture instead. Luffy, Smoker. So for Lilith, she is a searcher, which normally you wouldn't want to play, but in this case we'll go ahead and put her as a substitute just because she has the good stats for cost. 3 cost 5,000 with the chance to succeed in a search. So even if you don't get the search, you still have a presence on the board. Sabo's going to be a pick. I would actually say a must pick, because for his effect to KO a 5 or less and then a 3 or less, you possibly could remove 2 from your opponent's board and have a 9 cost character. Ben Beckman was the card that I accidentally showed as Shanks. It was not that. He will be a must pick as well. You're trashing an opponent's character that's 6,000 or less for free. You're not even discarding anything, so must play. Luffy's also a must play. He's a rush. He's a 10,000 power rush, and you draw a card. Smoker is also a must pick to be able to banish and every single turn restand one of your Dawn. You play it. You have to play it. Okay. So once again, you have here all of your must picks. These will be the ones that you will also play in your deck. If you don't have enough of the cards above, you can consider running these cards here in the substitute. And most of all, you should not be running any of these cards here that are in the drop section. So, yes. That about does it. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. And take care.